Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Orange County Industrial Development Agency meeting for March 19th, 2025. I'd ask Bill to do the roll call, please. And the time is 5:20.
Jeffrey Christ.
Here.
Dean Tamburri.
Here.
Susan Walsky.
Here.
Linda Muller.
Here.
Giovanni Palladino.
Here.
Mark Green.
Here.
Dr. Vincent Odock.
Here.
7 of 7 members. For staff, Bill Fioravanti, Marty Barras remotely, and Kelly Riley. Our AV staff is here. Dylan, I'm sorry, what's your last name? Yeah, thank you. From Acquisitions Marketing, our state monitor, Brian Sandvidge, our general counsel, Lino Sharetta, and our guest, couple of guests, Melissa Zott from PKF O'Connor Davies, and Mr. Bradley Schwartz from
Sharon Steinmetz.
Sharon Steinmetz. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'd ask for consideration of the minutes from the February 19th, 2025 meeting. Any additions, corrections, motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Doc Odock for the
Second.
minutes. Second by Linda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And I might ask if it's acceptable from council that we move right to the review of the 2024 financial audit by,
Can we put the easement ahead of that so we can?
oh, sure, I
go
forgot,
right
yes,
on?
yes. We good with that?
You're good with that, Mr. Chairman.
So just jump down to new business for the moment, and then we'll jump back up. And would you introduce?
I would, please, yeah. Just a little background on this. This was in my report in your packet. But we have our project Green Thumb Industries, AKA Fiorello Pharmaceutical, at the Warwick Tech Park, a cannabis cultivation and processing facility, huge, 400,000 square feet. They're gonna put a solar array on the site. They require an easement, and we need to bless that since we have we're party to the property there. You guys handled it? The GTI, you were involved in the project.
So we represent the utility that was involved in it. That's why we were conflicted out. That's why Brad Schwartz reported his conflict counsel to handle that aspect of it for just this purpose.
Last month, you'll remember that we appointed Brad, so he is here, Brad Schwartz from Sharon Steinmetz. Thanks for joining us, Brad. You are muted, I think, but when you're ready, if you could, the board has seen and reviewed the easement agreement, but if you want to give any other background on it and lead us through this.
That's all. Good to meet you all. Bill, good intro, good summary. I did review the easement on your behalf. It's a very standard boilerplate easement agreement with all the normal terms that we typically find in easements. You've seen the map. There's an access over a portion of the property to access the nearest road, John Hicks Drive. So it's a standard agreement. They're simply asking for the IDA's consent. I didn't see anything in there that was problematic. So I have no problem with your board granting that consent and subordinating your interest in the property to that easement. So I'm comfortable with your board proceeding with the consent that was requested.
Thank you, Brad. And it does start on page 12 of our board documents, the details of that easement. And I'd ask if there's any questions related to the easement.
I have a quick question.
Mark?
How do I phrase this? If we grant this, do we have any exposure legally for any construction that occurs on this? Anybody maintains this gets hurt? Like, are we absolutely certain all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed as far as being properly insured for any kind of things that could possibly happen on this site?
I think Brad will go ahead.
Great question. I was focused on that issue. So the indemnification in your agreements with GTI cover you on an indemnity standpoint, and the insurance is required for the project, and the solar company will name the agency as an additional insured, and we'll get proof of that before any work can begin. So insurance and indemnifications are properly covered in the easement agreement itself.
Thank you.
And that comes with a kind of a appropriate level of insurance as well?
Yes, it was $1 million. Yes, $1 million and $2 million. Because it's all the standard requirements for property damage and injury damage, personal damage.
As outlined in the lease-back agreement.
And just to echo Mark's point, we're protected in that regard. Again, we'll still probably be brought into any lawsuit, but in terms of getting out of it, to Brad's point, we are protected in that regard. But again, it doesn't prevent us from being named in an action or a subsequent proceeding. That usually happens, but we have recourse in terms of if we do, to get out by way of motion or like I said, indemnity. That's why it's really clear.
So I have a question. Is this easement in perpetuity, or is it until, as long as the solar farm is in existence?
Brad, what's the question?
Look, it's perpetual.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with that.
Perpetual, non-exclusive, temporary easement as and when needed over the right of way.
Seems like the,
So it's in perpetuity.
it seems like the solar component would have some lifespan and there might be a ending point.
That's,
Yeah, that's like,
Is that how a lot of the solars are written in perpetuity? Is that just basically because it's for a solar? And then my only question is doing this, does that block any other properties for other development from us that we're putting solar on it,
There are no other remaining parcels in the tech park there around that cul-de-sac where they're located. Brad, can you speak to any exposure that we may have due to this being in perpetuity?
no, because again, it doesn't affect the IDA. It's a GTI granting the easement. It doesn't affect your rights vis-a-vis GTI with all the financial assistance that was granted.
You would think when the financial assistance is completed, whatever the life
we should be
is,
released from it.
we would, yes, have again, an ending point.
That's why, from our perspective, it has to have an end point. Otherwise, 40 years from now, that solar farm is obsolete and something else wants to be built in it. Well, we are party to the easement. How does that affect us?
And so you're just simply consenting to the easement, so when the easement terminates, then it's gone, your consent is gone, right? You're not a party to the easement per se, you're just giving GTI the blessing to enter into the agreement itself.
Right.
So when
Well,
the,
you're not a party to the easement, it's just the property owners and who are affected by it.
Okay.
Because it was an agency project, it requires your consent, but you're not on the easement itself.
Okay.
That makes
Not
a
a part.
difference. Everybody comfortable now? Anybody care to make the motion for the approval of this easement?
I have one other question. How far along, do we know how far along is this thing to be built until it's built?
I don't know, I think they're eager to get started, they got approvals in August of 2024 from the town of Warwick. I know they've been anxious to get this consent authorized so they can move on to the next stage and get a building permit, but so other than that, I don't know their exact construction schedule, but I got a sense of urgency from the solar company.
Yeah.
They usually take,
Is there any local labor policy on this thing?
It's not an IDA, sanctioned project, that component of it, so no requirement for that.
Anything else? Anybody care to make a motion? Did you have something, Brad?
No, I was gonna say not for me.
Okay, yep. A motion for the approval of this described easement.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Giovanni, second
Second.
by Mark. All in favor, please say aye.
all right.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you for being here, Brad.
Thanks for all your work, Brad, you've been great to work with.
Very welcome. Terrific, guys. Good night,
Thanks so
everyone.
much.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Lino, do you
And-
need to do a roll call for this, since it's like that in the resolution?
Yeah, you don't need it, you're good.
Okay.
And now I'll move on to the 2024 financial audit. Melissa Zott from PKF O'Connor Davies. Welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I still want to go over the required communications because it is a new meeting, but I'll point on the most important parts of it.
Yep.
Management's responsibilities on slide 3. Making sure that the accounting policies are appropriate. The financial statements should be presented in accordance with the United States generally accepted accounting principles. Making sure your internal controls are effective and operating effectively. We did meet with the audit committee on March 5th. We did have a robust discussion on this as well. It is a lot more activity, so it was a lot more discussion over the IDA. We do have, as on slide 4, part of our responsibilities, forming and expressing an opinion. You do have the copy of the financial statements. We have issued an unmodified opinion. That is the clean opinion or the best opinion that the IDA can receive. There's a yellow book report on internal controls and an investment report. We are required to communicate any deficiencies in writing to the IDA, and we're happy to report that there were no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no control deficiencies. We did not enter any or have any difficulties at all part of the audit process. There were no uncorrected misstatements and no disagreements with management. So let's go to slide 6. What we've done for the IDA is we've provided a summary, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail. Again, I'll still remain relatively high level because we did talk about this in detail at the audit committee. So again, here at the IDA, you have operating and non-operating activities. Operating activities relate to the IDA's mission, so they're extremely integral to that mission. Your non-operating would be secondary activities. So your total operating revenues totaled $171,000. That dropped $425,000 from last year. We'll go over what happened. Your operating expenses increased $187,000, so you ended at almost $1.1 million. So your loss just from operations was $921,000, but you did have some other non-operating activity, which then turned your loss into a positive result. So you have a change in that position of $312,000. So you started off the year 9.4, and you ended the year almost at 9.8 million. So if we go to the next slide, that's your revenue slide. The first half is your operating revenue, the second half is your non-operating. So I'm gonna touch on the first 2 items, which are the biggest changes. You did have a drop in your closing fees. Like we said, your total operating revenues did drop. So last year you had closing fees of $542,000. If you remember, that was from your Goshen developer and your Royal Wine closing fees. This year you only had closing fees of $32,000, and that was related to a supplemental application for the castle. The management administration fees, that revenue of $97,000, as we saw on the corporation side, that was mainly due to your 16%, 84% split in your management fees. So that brings your total operating revenue to $171,000. You did have non-operating revenue items. Largest of the 2 is your interest income. You had $837,000 of interest income, essentially $5.9 million in investments versus $9.5 million, so there's a significantly more amount to have income earned. And then the next item is your settlement proceeds. $400,000 was related to a final settlement payment, so you would not anticipate receiving that next year. If we go to the next slide, that's going to be your expenses. You can see here that there was a big drop in your project and special initiatives, $124,000, so you ended with those expenses at being $22,000. The drop was related mainly due to the Shovel Ready program expenditures, so just the activity in that program. The next item I want to point out is going to be your professional fees. That is a $345,000 versus $126,000, so that did increase $219,000. The main reason for that increase is related to the costs associated with the Anshin New York State monitoring contract. So overall, your total operating expenses ended at $954,000, so only an increase of $105,000 in the prior year. Those are your major operating. There were some other non-major operating expenses of $138,000, and you had a slight loss on disposal of assets, which brought your total expenses to $1 million. If we go to the next slide, that's going to be the balance sheet. So the biggest change in your assets is gonna be related to your cash and equivalents and your investments. A similar swap, you have a drop in your cash equivalents, but an increase in your investments. So you did just end up purchasing more investments this year. Your total assets ended at about 9.9 million. Your liabilities, there was not a significant change in your liabilities, only a drop of about 58,000. Your net position does have, it's broken out into 3 categories. Your investment and capital assets, that's just related, how much of your net position is related to acquisition of your fixed assets. Your unrestricted is broken out into designated and undesignated, and the designated would be related to your shovel-ready program, and then your undesignated is at 9.5 million. So that concludes my presentation for the IDA.
Thank you. Melissa, questions from any board members? You good, Bill? Anybody care to make a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Dean, second by Doc Odoc. Other discussion, last minute questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carried. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, wonderful seeing you.
We got you out of here pretty quick.
And I just want to thank Melissa and her team, they were tremendous
Yes.
to work with, and of course Kelly and Marty for all the support they
Yeah.
did, so really great work, thank you
Great.
Melissa.
Good
Thank
one.
you.
Have
Talk to you soon.
have a good night.
Have a great meeting.
As a quick aside, during the audit committee discussions, one of the questions was asked was how efficient was the process? And I think they said 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they were on site for 5 days. Last year, they were on site for 4 days. This year, they were on site for 3 days. And I think that's a testament to Bill and Kelly and Marty. I then asked the question, how do we get you down to 2 days being here? And the woman gave me a little bit of stink eye and said, we don't like being on site less than 3 days. So even if we have to sit here, we're gonna sit here for 3 days. So, but I think that is, and again, as we go through the next part of the audit, it all ties together with the reporting and such. So truly, Bill, kudos to you and your team for continuing to learn and listen and just becoming more efficient.
Thanks so much.
Yes, very nicely said to Kelly, and Marty's up there on the corner. Hi, Marty. Thank you, guys. Good work.
Mr. Chair, can we make sure that that is in the minutes, please?
Sure.
Copy that, Marty? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good thought. Moving back up to reports. And on my chairman's report, I attended several meetings that are in the CEO report, which is quite detailed, a lot going on the last month. Also, I attended the quarterly project update meeting for the partnership, and mostly Connor Eckert provided a nice look, a PowerPoint, if anybody wants to see it, on things going on potentially moving forward. And he did mention our Fast New York grants, as well as the Brownfield grant, which we're in the process of working on, and also detailed some more in Bill's report. I would also say there's prospects in the pipeline. In one case, we're under a non-disclosure agreement, but I made one trip, it wasn't necessary for both Bill and I to go, but to see an existing facility that could be built here in Orange County if pieces come together, and it was neat to see, and from the traffic to the parking to the high-tech use of technology. So I am hopeful, and I think Bill is too, of some projects not too far out, and meaning this year, that should come in with application and opportunity to move forward. And I would say tie in nicely with our goals,
Yes.
which we talked about at the last meeting. So unless there's a question for me on the chair report, I'll move on to the CEO report. Is that okay? Bill?
Yes, and I had a pretty comprehensive CEO report in your packet, so only thing in addition to that is Jeff and I are gonna be attending another New York State EDC conference, the annual meeting in Cooperstown in May, and his team will be there as well. Because of the timing, it actually starts, the full day of the conference is on Wednesday, May 21st. That's when our board meeting is. So I've contacted almost all of you about looking at another date, and I think we are gonna settle on Wednesday, May 14th for our governance, finance, and board of directors meetings. Okay, so I'll send out an official notice on that, but I wanna make sure everyone knows. Brian, I did not tell you that, I don't think, so hopefully that's not a problem for your team. That's really all I wanted to add.
And you're okay with that, Lena?
That's fine.
And it's 2 months out, if we have to tweak it further, we can do that. I do know when board members due to be away, so I apologize for that. I think this is a fairly important conference for some of us to attend. If anybody else wanted to attend, let Bill know.
With all due respect, sir, it's a wash because I wasn't gonna be able to go to the 21st.
Oh, okay, so this works for you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I had a
nice.
School board meeting that night, so.
Okay,
And kids come above you, so.
yeah, I got it, rightly so.
Yeah, and I explained to Bill, I can't commit to that date. I have a sister who's expecting to get surgery and we don't have a date yet.
Oh, okay, yep, understood. Anything else for Bill's report or questions on his report that's in our packet?
And he's been busy.
Yeah, it's been busy times.
Getting these grants underway or involving some work, and do you discuss them later on, or you?
Yes, because we're gonna make.
Oh, that's
the
right,
selection
yes,
there,
yeah, I knew there was something. Okay, thank you, Bill. Committee reports, audit committee, Susan's the chair and was unable to be there, so Dean, you're on the hot seat again. But at least this is
again,
done.
I'm saying, we went through with Connor Davies, with Melissa, and Mark had some great comments regarding the audit committee. I appreciate that, Mark, and that's pretty much what it was.
Okay. Any other questions for Dean or Susan? Not hearing any, and we just completed the approval of the 2024 audit. Business is in good shape there. Finance committee, please, Mark.
All right, so a few different things to discuss. Real quick, if you're looking at your budget versus actual sheet, just want to point out that the January numbers are good, the February numbers are good, but please note that the total on the right-hand side, that is actually the previous 3 months. That is not year-to-date, so.
Because it includes December.
Because it includes December, January, February. So there's a little bit of confusion in the finance committee about that. Next month, that'll be fixed simply because we'll have 3 months in this year, but we've made a note to fix that for 2026. So that's one thing. Another thing really quick, if you're looking through this, you'll see the engine component at just under 29,000. And then when we look at the transactions of bills paid, you'll notice those numbers don't sync up. That's because 2 of the 3 bills came in that equal that 28,000. The other bill will hit next March, or will hit in March, so you'll see that next month. As far as any kind of expenses that were a little out, I mentioned the engine, and that's for the end of last year. Also a little bit higher Lego land monitor, and then our accounting CPAs, year-end reporting was an additional charge of roughly $3,300. That brings us to the final component, which is CD. Rinse and repeat from our FC comment. We have a 9-month investment coming due tomorrow. We are going to roll over a portion of that. Sorry, where it is. Here it is. We're going to roll over a portion of that. We have 1.4 million coming due. We did a bunch of analysis as far as looking at our checking account, which has 643,000 in it. While we thought we could take more out, we have to allocate a component for the Indigo, in case Indigo comes due in the next couple of months. We also had to allocate a component for the Orange County study.
The quality of life study.
Quality of life, which is another 20,000. So what we decided in the finance committee, and hopefully you all approve, is that we have the 1.4 million that rolls, that we'll be able to reinvest, plus we're gonna add, we're gonna take 250,000 out of the checking account to make that full investment of 1,650,000 in a 9-month treasury bill at 4.02%. And that keeps in our strategy of staggered every 3 months, coming due. And also, because we're gonna put it in T-bill, we have liquidity, so if anything comes up in the next 3 months that we didn't plan on, we can pull that out with no penalty. But I think we've crossed all of our Ts as far as that goes, and thought of everything, and still have left a nice padding into the checking account. I'm done.
Thank you, Mark. Questions for Mark? And I would suggest maybe we entertain that motion to approve the $1,650,000 9-month treasury bill. If anybody's care to make that.
I'll move the
By
motion.
Linda, second to that motion.
I'll second that one.
Susan, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And as we did here a few minutes ago, let's entertain the February 2025 financials as well as the February-March payables. If anyone would care to make that motion, which was recommended for us to do by the committee.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Giovanni, second to that motion. Second by Dean, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you for that report, Mark. And Linda, governance, please.
Yes, happy to do that. The easy part is, the bylaws were reviewed by council, no real recommendations for change. Again, we're gonna be doing a little bit of cleanup. The more comprehensive thing that we did was go over the employee handbook, which again was reviewed by council. Many recommendations that were made throughout the document. Some of our committee members had some questions regarding some of those changes and some other changes that weren't made. So we'll be waiting for council's response to that. Once that's all approved, then we'll bring it to the board for their approval, and that will be the document going forward. We hope to have shortened it, but anytime you get a lawyer, hands on a document,
No.
it stayed kind of the same, 87 pages.
Just approved, that's all.
So we'll entertain that approval after a few more modifications and go from there. And did you want to mention the IDA application recommendation from the committee on,
Bill?
Yes, you wanna do that now?
Yes.
Yeah, so just a quick summary on that.
and this came up in governance?
Yes, it was
Yes.
covered in governance, yes. And the committee recommended this approval that I'm asking for now.
Yes.
Basically, you all know we just revised our uniform tax exemption policy, our UTEP. Along with that, we also have a new recapture policy and a project approval policy. The project approval policy really spells out the criteria by which you weigh in considering incentives for a project. It's very detailed, it includes a number of different criteria. The score sheet was something that the last administration put in, we've had it for a few years. It really is to allow you to compute a score that kind of approves a pilot, basically, that's the only purpose for it. But now with the UTEP and the project approval policy, this score sheet is really redundant. Plus, we feel that it limits the board's latitude to be able to consider all those criteria in making decisions on incentives. So we're really looking to take it out, and council is agreeing with that. So really just looking for your approval to do so. Just take the one page out of the application.
And that is also, and that's an expense to us when we have that score sheet, correct?
An expense?
Don't you have that program that you put it into to get that?
That's different, that's our cost benefit
Yeah.
analysis tool. So that really just talks about what the return is on the savings we offer.
It's related to.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
true.
So, I mean, if we have a clear enough picture when we get these applications, like you said, a score sheet doesn't really give you all the information. It just puts numbers in front of you.
Right.
Yep, that's what the committee thought, and that's why we were comfortable bringing it up in committee and bringing it before the board for approval.
Yeah, I would agree, and the application, as long as it's clear and concise, and I can make heads or tails of it, I'm all for making it one less piece of paper in there.
And as Bill pointed out, our UTEP revisions really clarify and go into some detail on things we're trying
Yeah.
to most attract and provide the largest benefits for, so.
Well, I'm gonna do something I never thought I would do.
Uh-oh.
Really? Never?
Sir,
Yeah.
you know, you.
Bill, I'm
have-
sorry, go ahead.
You have exposure to other IDAs. Is this standard operating procedure?
Yes, and Bill and I went over when, first of all, when you created the UTEP and put everything in the UTEP, to give you kind of a broad, flexible policy where you could make decisions based on what was in front of you at the current time, economic time, when a project came in front of you. This was kind of almost redundant, but we were back and forth on it. I think what you have now in the UTEP gives you a lot more flexibility and more information, so I don't think you need it.
My understanding is it's not that common to have that score sheet. I'm talking to colleagues about it.
Yeah, look, I'm way overthinking this. You know, it's just, that, I agree, I think it's the right thing to do. I just want to make sure that we're thinking of every possible
Ramification.
ramification that we can think of. So, thank you.
Would anyone care to make a motion on this? Which is to amend our IDA application by removing the scorecard section, I think it's Exhibit
Exhibit B.
B. Got it.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Giovanni, second to that motion. Dean, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Now where are we at, Bill? I've really mixed things up
We
here.
did
huh?
Paris or?
Yeah, let's do Paris. We'll go back in the right order.
Great. Same thing for Paris, you, as we talked about in FC, you have this for your review. This is sent under separate cover from our packet because of the length. Only other change from the draft that you reviewed is, again, we have one of our members is an elected official, so we did have to change from no to yes on that. Everything else is as you reviewed. Again, looking for approval so that we could submit to the authority's budget office by the 3/30 deadline this year.
Questions on that?
I was gonna make a motion
Okay.
to approve it as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion by
Does that
Mark?
cover what you?
Yeah, he just said amended to reflect the
Yep.
one change.
Second.
Other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried on the Paris report. And now I think we're down to the
EPA.
selection on the EPA Brownfield grant. Go.
Yes, so you'll all recall that we were awarded a $500,000 EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant to allow us to study contaminated properties around the county with the hope of eventually remediating them and putting them back on the tax rolls with new projects. I did check with the EPA, by the way, to make sure that it was not frozen and this would happen. I've been giving all indications that it's gonna move forward. We have a green light for this project, so we are gonna go ahead with this important step. We put out 2 requests for proposals. The first is for really the main consultant that will execute this grant, which is known as a qualified environmental professional. We received 14 responses to that. Incredible proposals. They were all impressive, all with great references and projects. Jeff and I both reviewed those. And I had 3 finalists and then made a final selection of HRP. It's a group out of Clifton Park that really specializes in environmental remediation and studies like this. The others, many of the other respondents were engineers or planners that also do environmental. The other thing with HRP is they just completed a very successful brownfield assessment grant for the city of Newburgh. And I spoke with the contact from Newburgh about that, and I spoke with some of my colleagues from other IDAs that have worked with HRP, and they all had glowing things to say about them. The Newburgh folks called them the dream team. The other aspect to it, the second RFP was for a project manager to just help us coordinate. That's why the point person that can help with it. And through the process of reviewing the RFPs, we got two project manager responses. And in talking to the finalists that we considered, the project management responsibilities can be handled by the QEP. So we actually notified the two respondents on the project manager RFP and told them we were selecting neither proposal and we were going to allow HRP to handle the project management. In talking to the respondents, I understand that would be redundant again, and we probably would be incurring additional expense from the grant that we didn't need, since the project management responsibilities would be handled under the QEP. So we're not looking to select anyone for the project manager, but we are looking for your approval to name HRP Associates for our QEP for the EDA grant. Yeah.
Bill, do they give you a fee schedule, or how are they basing their fee?
Yes, every respondent gave us hourly rates for all the different professionals and estimates for what kind of time will be spent. And basically, their proposal was for $450,000 to execute most of the grant. The $50,000 actually can be admin chargebacks that we are able, for the work that we put into, we can put in for reimbursement.
Does that include the project management, or is that on top?
It does, it includes that.
And that's is it a not to exceed, or is that just an estimate, or is it
It's
based
gonna be
on?
work, pay as you go, work
Time and
as we
material.
go, so, but that is what we're holding them to, that amount, so we keep the remainder for admin that we need.
Bill, so this grant that we have, we don't physically have the 500,000, or
We don't.
So, wait, when can we start, how's that gonna?
It's
occur?
reimbursement, and I find this hard to believe, but I checked with all my colleagues, including those in Newburgh. The reimbursement is almost immediate. You put in to their ASAP system, I think it's called, the federal system, you get reimbursed by wire transfer either that day or the next day. So we will make some payments, will be a little cash flow there, but it will be right back in within a day. So that's the real beauty of this project.
And they, HRP, they're gonna be looking for the site, or we're gonna?
It's a great question. We're gonna put together a brownfield task force. Some people that have already been involved in this, including reaching out to some municipal leaders. It's really our opportunity to talk to town, village, city officials and ask, what are some properties that you want us to take a look at? So we already have some ideas. The former Napera site in Woodbury is a tremendous site, but very dirty. There are a number of parcels in Port Jervis. We already met with city officials there, looking at it. But the task force will, and the feedback we get from municipal leaders and legislators, we thought that was an opportunity to talk to our county legislators about anything of interest in their districts. But that will help feed, or will drive, the sites that we look at.
So once they're identified, and they're gonna come up with some sort of aggregate, how much would have to be removed, et cetera?
Yeah, it will tell us exactly what the level of contamination, the types of contamination, and it also sets us up for future funding for the actual remediation.
So developers would have this information and they can apply.
Exactly.
And what's the time frame for the project? How long do they
It's a
expect?
3-year cycle, so it's gonna take us a while to be able to work on all these. And just further on Dean's question, I think the limit is you can only spend $200,000 on one site, but we wouldn't expect it to come to that necessarily. So we don't know exactly how many we're going to be able to, how many assessments we can conduct until we, identify the sites and see what kind of level of study is required.
And
So-
how long do they expect site selection to take? Do they give you any?
Couple of months, I think we're gonna take in order to really comprehensively consider properties around the county.
Okay, and will the board be involved in the decision-making of the site selections?
Not expecting you to. I can report to you and get your feedback, but
Okay.
it isn't something that we need approval on. But happy to,
But
dialogue
just as a
about that.
board, if we're gonna be investing in this, I'd like to know what sites, are gonna be worked on.
I think maybe knowing them, but I think, is that why we're hiring HRP? They'll identify the better one?
with this task force, yes, we're gonna be driving the process for sure, so.
I think that's a good comment, Susan, and we should ask that they keep us updated. I assume they would, especially to Bill, and he can put it in his monthly CEO report.
Absolutely.
Linda?
Just following up on what Giovanni was speaking to, do we actually have a contract from them?
We do have a contract they sent to us yesterday, I wanna say, I just got to Bleakley Plat, so they're reviewing it right now.
Can we put in a not to exceed clause?
Yeah, we can do that.
Sure, right, yeah.
We're definitely capped at 500.
Well, cap it 450.
Cap it
I'm just saying is,
450.
we want to make sure we're not spending more than what the grant is.
Well, we wanna spend
Less.
450, because we get 50 back, so.
Bill, do you have a really good understanding of what the deliverable is? What is, for their fee, like you're saying $200,000 for a site?
Phase ones and phase twos, you
Okay.
know, essentially. Some planning for reuse of the sites. There also will be community engagement. We'll be holding a few public meetings, looking for public feedback on, again, adaptive reuse of the sites. And I did put it in your packet, but I'll give you a look afterward at their proposal so you can, and I'll show you exactly what those deliverables
I was just say, can you email that out to us, maybe?
Sure, I can do that.
So we can just get eyes on it?
Absolutely.
The thing I would say, and I reviewed to some reasonable degree each of the proposals, and we had 12, I think.
12 QEP and
Two of the
Chief
others,
Project Manager.
yeah. But the comprehensiveness of them, the HRP one is about 60 pages. And I couldn't believe, because they referred to brownfield projects that have worked on across the state, how many there are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hundreds. And the depth of the other RFPs were generally quite good.
Oh, yeah.
Some I definitely like more than others, but Bill got some, you have some experience, or did they do something in Newburgh?
I was part of the Newburgh project,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, part of the committee that brought them in.
That was a huge project,
It was,
if I
yeah.
remember correctly.
It's been very successful. Really focused on the urban renewal hillside that comes up from the waterfront that's been talked about redevelopment forever.
Forever.
And it's always, people just say, we don't even know what's under it, and all these problems. Sewer issues, the sewer was kind of cut A to B through there and not set up for redevelopment. That there's a new sewer main coming through there, it was a huge project done. And now with this assessment, we know what's underneath it, so. And there really isn't terrible contamination, it's more geotechnical issues, which Giovanni was on the team originally, so he knows what's involved in building on that slant, on that slope, I should say. But very successful, and again, the people involved had nothing but great things to say about working with HRP.
Doc?
Yeah, this segment will involve impact study, right? I mean, like economic impact studies.
No, sir,
No.
not for this, no. Really just the analysis of the hazardous contamination on the sites. Really focused on the environmental component.
Potentially a project that comes in would have to do those if they come to us.
Yeah.
Bill, just one last question. Will they provide you with some sort of budget of what they would think would be required to clean the site?
I'm not sure of that, actually, if there'll be a budget.
Not a cost estimate. I mean,
Just an
'cause
estimate?
you know, the concern, right, you're looking at a site and they'll tell you, yeah, you can clean it, it's gonna cost you 10 million.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's not, that's not a realistic project anymore.
Right.
So they should know from experience. I mean, I've worked with them in the past, so just make sure that that's part of the deliverables, at least some sort of approximate cost estimate of what the potential cost could be to clean and to what level.
Yeah, to that, I mean,
That's great.
obviously that, but I just assumed there was gonna be like, give quantities, right? I don't know what the cost would be, but you're looking at X amount of fill that would have to be removed
Yeah.
at some sort of level of
You know, they'll have to do
contamination.
probes, they'll have to do all that
Yeah,
stuff. yeah.
Depends on what type of redevelopment you're gonna do there as well. If it's housing, it's a whole other level, you may
Right.
not be able to do it in certain sites,
Right, which is the-
compared to industrial and such, so it does depend on what use we're looking at, which will come out of the study, some of what's considered.
Because they're doing the phase one assessment, the phase two assessment. They're gonna survey certain contaminations and provide a report of what's there. So I think to go the next step and figure out cost, most of that information should be there. The volume estimates would be interesting. I would almost think that phase one and two would have some indication if it's minor or the whole site or whatever.
But to Bill's point, it depends on the use. Residential
Oh,
is the
yeah,
highest,
true,
the
true.
highest cost typically.
Yep. So to me, it's exciting to be able to move forward quite promptly now on one of our goals for 2025. And
Absolutely.
to have most of it, if not all of it, reimbursed
Yes, absolutely,
promptly.
absolutely.
which is different than the fast New York ones.
Absolutely.
Not so fast.
No.
Yeah. Would anyone care to make a motion? We need to approve this selection
I'll make the
that
motion.
Bill recommends.
I'll make the
By
motion.
Giovanni,
Yep.
second to
I'd like
that?
to amend that,
Okay.
that it should be subject to council review of the contract.
Yeah, I'd love to clarify that. Do we need to come back for the board's blessing
No.
on the actual agreement?
You're
Okay.
not, as long as
Okay.
you can authorize me to subject to council review with the provision that we'll put in the not to exceed clause, provided the parties agree with it.
You good with that?
Oh,
Giovanni?
absolutely.
Need a second to that motion with the council review clause? Mark? Thank you. Other questions? We good? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
Thank you all.
Excellent. What else? The next item you covered that we're not doing the project manager selection. And that's the last thing unless I left something out and jumping
We
around.
got it all done.
Thank you so much all. Have a good night.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you. We'll be here all night, huh, Mark?
Playing the part of Mark Reed will be Jeff Chris.
No, it's not Mark. Who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I think Mark made one.
Yeah, all right, you go for it, Mark. A second to that?
I'll second that.
Susan, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. I think we completed it now.
Jeff, you missed the 6 o'clock, just saying.
Yeah, I apologize.